Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business with me, Danny Pardo. We've got another special episode here based around Transport for West Midlands and the upcoming Commonwealth Games 2022 to Birmingham and the West Midlands region. And we're chatting to Will. Will is going to be giving some amazing career advice as well as a real deep insight into how are we going to get spectators to all of these venues around Birmingham and the West Midlands. So without any further ado, let's go and talk business with Will. Hello everyone, we are talking business with another one of our special transport related episodes here, and we've got William with us today. William, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, pleased to be here.
Super, and thank you very much for volunteering your time. Really do appreciate you giving up the time to speak to students and help them along. But thing is, though, who is William? Who are we talking to today?
Oh wow, yeah. So you can call me Will, by the way. I prefer
Will it is.
Yeah, that would be great. So, yeah, I'm a Staffordshire born and bred lad. I went to a comprehensive school in Lichfield, and I did my GCSEs and my A levels, and then I kind of got this bug for transport. And so from that point onwards, I've loved the subject. A bit nerdy, but it's something that I've always had a bit of a passion for. And so I proceeded with my career into transport. I did my GCSEs, as I say, my A levels, and then I took further studies into this transport field.
Right. So you've been very interested in, we don't come across many people like yourself where you actually decide at quite an early age that this is what I'm interested in and I'm going to stick with it and roll with it. What A levels did you do, if you don't mind me asking?
I did geography, English, and history, but geography was my passion, or is my passion,
Right.
and it's always been. I've always, loved the urban kind of area and just how planning and how transport connected people, and it's always been that sort of invisible glue. Everybody sort of takes it for granted, and it's that kind of like I find that quite fascinating. It's sort of, you only notice it when it's not there, as in, you only notice these things when something goes wrong, but for the rest of the time it's kind of, you just take it for granted. And it was just something that I kind of like, I want to know how this works and how it helps people, and how there's, how it provides that connectivity, and how it links everybody together. And
Absolutely brilliant. And what was your degree in then? I presume it built upon that.
Yes, so I did a degree in geography,
Right.
and I specialised in, say, transport and kind of the human side of it, and the planning, and and I did that down in Plymouth.
Right.
So it was kind of, I couldn't get much further away from home. It was that kind of, I think I wanted to have a bit of distance between me and my folks, and having that bit of independence. I went right down to the southwest to learn.
Fascinating. So we've got, you've obviously got that passion for it. You've had it for quite a while now, So as we move forward then, so what do you do now then? How have you turned that passion from when you were studying into that you are still employed in the industry now? What's your job role? And I guess this question is going to take us a while to answer, but what do you do?
So at the moment, I'm a project manager within Transport for West Midlands, but perhaps it might be worth just saying how I got into this initially.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So I've always, as I say, had a massive interest in transport, and I was lucky enough through my studies to be able to sort of focus on that a bit more. And when I was down in Plymouth, there were some big transport schemes happening at the time, and I volunteered a little bit down there just to kind of get involved and to see, shadowing a few sort of officers and that sort of thing. And that enabled me to then move into this area of work, transport planning in particular. And it's always seemed to be a bit of a nerdy kind of subject area, but actually it's far from it. It is really, it's challenging, but it's also exciting. And that has then led me to move back home, actually, to the Birmingham area. And I worked at Birmingham Council for quite a few years on the transport development side of things. So that's looking, and it was all sorts of different project areas and different modes of transport. So whether it was highway schemes or active travel and cycling and walking, And also the behavioural change side of things, and that's quite an interesting area in itself, about how people view travel and how they want to, how they want to be able to be connected to other people and to employment. But then, as sort of opportunities arose, I then worked for a bit working on the HS2 project for the region. But then the Commonwealth Games is coming to town, and I was like, yeah, I really want to be able to have be able to contribute to that. And so this position as a project manager came up within Transport for West Midlands. And so I was lucky enough to secure that position with the experience that I'd got up to now with all the different projects areas that I've been working on. And so that has enabled me to be able to now really be part of this fantastic opportunity for the region. And so the actual job itself, it's as I say, it's a project manager position. But it's not in the true sort of project management kind of how you would imagine it to be, in the sense of we're not necessarily building something with a clear, this is the beginning, and this is the, these are all the components that you need to do to build this. This is about bringing together all the different people and all of the different areas that will make up the spectator requirements for getting people to the games. So there's a massive team behind the spectator side. So we're working for Transport for West Midlands, and that will help with getting spectators to the venues. But of course, there is the organising committee for the Commonwealth Games that is doing all of the, all of the athlete side of things, and actually building the venues and coordinating. But our job is looking at, as I say, getting spectators to the venues. So there is a whole complex approach to this. There's going to be like over 1 million spectators coming to the games.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, it's big numbers. So we've got to look at, how do we move those spectators? How do we get them from where they'll be arriving in the city? So, if they're arriving at Birmingham New Street, how do we get them down to whether it's Edgbaston Cricket Club? How do we get them over to Stanwell Valley? So there's whole teams of colleagues that are actually looking at and planning for this movement of people. And my role is to help to plan that and to put so we have like a project plans. So we're looking at, right, we've got a pathway to get us to games from now, and all the planning to actually games time. What do we need to do for all these separate areas to bring it all together to have an integrated transport planning approach for the games? And so that's kind of a key area of the work, really, is to bring together all of the individual leads that are taken forward, whether they're planning for rail or planning for bus, for spectator bus, that is, or for all the park and ride sites that will be created. How are we making sure that all of this comes together so it provides a slick and smooth experience for the spectator? So basically, like what I said at the beginning, that you don't even notice, it's a sort of, you arrive in the city and there's just a slick approach where you kind of get onto your onto the spectator bus that takes you to the venue, and you don't even, you don't
just
even
happens.
It just happens.
And
that's what I love about the whole transport planning side of things. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes in putting it all together. But it's, for me, it's the customer experience, in that if they don't even notice it, that's a win. It all absolutely, just flows so smoothly.
That's fascinating. So, without you and your team and all those people working there, people like me and my students and all the other students listening to this, we can't go to the games, can we? It's great having all the athletes from all across the world and all the advertising and the mascot and the television coverage. But without you and your team, we can't physically attend this amazing spectacle, can we? You know, that obviously shows the importance of what you and your team are doing there. And you spoke a little bit there then about different types of transport. I wanted to quickly mention, maybe not quickly mention, the car. And the reason I say the car is because, you know, a lot of students now learning to drive. And then I come out with all these things in class about, yeah, but what they're doing is we've got a clean air zone coming. We've got this, we've got e-scooters, we've got the tram coming in. And man looking at me like, yeah, but I'll have a car. So what's going on with, say, car transport, and how's that tying into the games? Is that, and you mentioned, I think, park and ride scheme, so I presume that'll be a big part of it. How are you integrating the good old-fashioned car into the Commonwealth Games kind of plan, or are we looking at a more multimodal use in the next year or so?
Yeah, well, we're certainly looking at multimodal. It's going to be a sustainable game, so we are very much promoting public transport, and you know, providing that uplift for the game so that we can provide that extra capacity, so people will want to travel to the venues by public transport. And that's not to say, obviously, we will, you know, we do need to cater for movement of athletes and for the games family. So what perhaps I should also say, there is a big area of work about what's called the Games Route Network. So that is about making sure that athletes can move by their you know, the relative modes of transport between their training venues and the and the competition venues as well. So there will be some transport provision, private transport provision, but also enabling the spectators to, the athletes to move around between those competition and non-competition venues. But we really want to try to discourage people driving to the venues, and that's why, you know, provision will be will be curtailed. There is an acknowledgement that, obviously, as I say, with the park and ride facilities, that there will be some people that, you know, and there will be a lot of people that will want to drive to as close as they can to the venues, but what we're trying to then encourage is a modal shift, so that they then travel that final section of the journey by public transport, whatever those provisions will be, so whether it's park and ride or rail, as in bus-based park and ride or rail, or, you know, obviously active travel as well. You know, if we can encourage people that we want local people to be able to get to the games, and, you know, if they can walk and cycle to the venues, that there will be provision provided for that. As part of the traffic management operations, there will be needs to kind of cater for you know, for accessibility, to making sure that we that everybody can get to the venues, and that nobody is you know, is left out, and so that there's that equality kind of approach, that making sure that, say, accessibility is at the heart of what we're doing, and that those people that need to get close to the venue are able to get close to the venue, and accessible shuttles and that, and those sort of modes will be made available. But principally, particularly around close to the venues, we will be restricting access for spectators. You know, there will not be we will try to restrict it by having temporary measures in place immediately around the venues, because then that also enables public transport access to be free flowing, that we don't have you know, cars parked in places that prevents the buses from accessing the venues and that sort of thing. So there might be temporary restrictions in places, so that'll be part of a wider piece of work, because obviously there'll be lots of engagement, and we need to make sure that we are catering for particularly people that are living around the venues. You know, we need to make sure that they can obviously access everything they need to be able to access, but also a key part of the games as well is there's the whole business as usual thing. So there's going to be lots of people that aren't doing anything in relation to the games. You know, they're going up and down the A34 by Alexander Stadium, but they're not going to the games.
Just going to work and going to visit people, or
where these people come from. So we know, and that's again part of the transport planning approach. Is like we need to make sure that there is a business as usual, that people can still go about their daily business. So that's what we're trying to you know, to plan for as well, and to support that there would be a wider traffic transport demand a travel demand management package to kind of make sure that there is awareness so that people can make those decisions early on how they're going to travel. Either are they going to the games, or are they trying to avoid getting going to areas where there might be a lot of activity around the venues, and what are their options, their travel choices. So again, it's all part of that blended approach, really, to making sure that we are catering for the spectators who want to get to the venues, but trying to make sure that there's business as usual for those people that are just going about their daily business.
Definitely. And as a Birmingham resident of many years, and I'm a bit further out now over in Sandwell, but I know the areas very well. And University of Birmingham now seems to really have that feel of, oh, this is what multimodal is. The fact that in say a year or so's time, with the hockey being played at the university on their grounds there, the fact that you can, the train station, the buses, the metro tram running to Edgbaston, the cycle routes, the e-scooters, which there seems to be hundreds of them around the university, looking at the app, that really feels like, oh, that's potentially the future of all these big venues. And you're right, you've still got the QE hospital next to University of Birmingham, you've got the packed residential streets, you've got supermarkets and shopping centres and all that. It's not going to turn off for a week, is it? You're not going to close those for a couple of weeks while the games is running. So has University of Birmingham been like a focal point? I mean, I guess all the venues have, but in terms of trying to get all those things in, how has University of Birmingham kind of dealt with that, and are there more things coming, or are you feeling confident about what you've got around that area now?
For the games, I mean, there's still at this point in time, we're kind of 16 months out, so there's still lots of work to do. Obviously, there's still the planning for the athletes village at University of Birmingham, as well as the venues there. But there is, we are very and working with the organising committee, obviously very closely. There's Transport for West Midlands and the organising committee, and obviously Birmingham City Council. There's a lot happening in that area. And so there is a lot of planning still to do, but no, very much that it is about trying to make sure that everybody is catered for. You've got all of that activity at the hospital as well, so it's going to be difficult to it's a challenge to make sure that everything works there. And at the moment, as I say, colleagues are working on all the transport modelling, so all of that kind of looking at how the traffic currently moves around the network in that location. If there are any restrictions, how do we make sure that places stay open? Like as we've got the Arts Institute down there as well. All those different components that are at play, and that's what I like about the challenge of transport planning generally. Is how do we make sure that all of this is able to keep operating? But I think that's where the public transport offering as part of the games will be a real key element, making sure that we've got great access via the rail network and enhancing University Station, and the uplift that we will be looking to provide along the A38 corridor, so that we've got the spectators are able to use those modes, as well as you say, that the electric scooters and goodness knows what else is all the kind of on-demand sort of modes that might be available then as well, autonomous vehicles and goodness knows what. But it is about making sure that we do cater for the existing demands on that area. But I say it's not going to be easy, because it's a really intense period, and you've got a lot of people going into those locations. But as I say, as part of the work that the team are working on, it's about understanding that demand, that for spectators, and the number of people wanting to get to that site. And so there's lots of kind of all the number crunching that colleagues are working on, sort of, and that they can do all the traffic modelling. So anybody that's interested in data and working out solutions and understanding how flows and all that kind of data analytics goes, and mapping, there's again transport planning and transport engineering and all that. Really, there's so much opportunity there to really explore if that sort of thing is kind of floats your boat. But using that information after all that number crunching, we can then look at what's our current demand, and what's our current kind of capacity on the network, and then what's the gap. So so I don't know, there's currently 1,000 bus seats, and we've got 2,000 people needing to be at a location at a certain time, right? So we need to get an extra 1,000 seats on buses. So, we need to get an extra, 150 buses in that area. And then how do we cater for that? So that's the kind of the nuts and bolts that a lot of the colleagues are working on. I say my job is more about bringing all those elements together and then sort of tracking the progress of how everybody's doing, and then we can display that to the organising committee and to other key delivery partners on how that spectator piece is coming together and how it's been managed.
And when you're talking there about organising committee, key partners, you're talking about getting extra bus routes in and things like that. One of the first things in one of our first units on the course that we delivered for students is about stakeholders. And you've just naturally kind of said quite a few different stakeholders there. And we talk about stakeholder conflicts and what the different stakeholders want and things. So how important is then communication between all these different stakeholders? Because obviously you can't operate in your own little bubble. You can't just do your thing and go, yeah, well, we did our job, and have that kind of image about it. So I mean, how are you communicating with all these different stakeholders and kind of keeping both those lines open to make sure that the games can run?
Well, I mean, it's a big challenge, but I think the end goal is what everybody is focused on. So that partnership approach and collaboration is absolutely key. I think from the outset, it's understanding kind of the roles and responsibilities, right? Who is actually doing what and when, and working together to make sure that there is a clear understanding. And I think once you get that base right, and that everybody's, it's then right, how do we now integrate all of this? How do we make sure that how everybody's planning is coming together enables us to work together as a team? And then that communication then is that key point. It's about being able to work with each other to understand and kind of manage expectations of when things will be delivered, but giving that clear having visibility of when things are going to happen, but also when there are challenges, and it's about just talking, to be honest with you. A lot of the time it's about, okay, what's the problem, or where's the issue, and how can we work together to mitigate those those issues, and also sharing kind of any of the risks as well. So we know that this could potentially be a risk, whatever it is, but again, working with partners, just getting everybody together to try and say, right, so that's the problem that you're facing at the moment. If we did this, if we can do that, would that help? Compromise as well. But I think, as you say, having those communication channels wide open and everybody working together to try to make it the best games, it is key. But I say stakeholder management is really difficult at times, because there can be quite difficult problems to get over, but quite often as well it's been evidence-based as well, rather than it's like, what actually is causing the problem? How can we identifying that, and then trying to mitigate it, trying to find solutions to be able to say, well, we might not be able to do this, but how about that, what about this, and working and getting everybody together. It's so important.
And I bet it must be, quite a challenge, obviously with COVID hitting, and we're doing this. You're obviously in your home, and I am, believe it or not, might just have borrowed a green screen here, but obviously having to do that then virtually as well, or online as well, causing those extra issues for you. Is that something you've got used to a little bit now?
Yeah, it has. I think for me personally, I would much prefer to be in the office, and that because it makes collaboration even internally, sort of within our teams and organisation. I think that collaboration is more slick, because it's just a case of wandering over to somebody's desk, and just a 2-minute conversation can clear up an issue, whereas trying to do it over email or booking a slot in somebody's calendar to then have a talk with them, and you can't see them for a couple of days, that sort of thing. So I think that does make it clunky, but we're all in the same boat, and we are working very well together. And I think this goes back to the communication piece. I think what we're just having to be is more efficient at communicating, and there is a lot of meetings where it is online, and it's you know, we have a governance sort of a process in place where, you know, you have regular catch-ups. We have monthly meetings of different boards and different groups, and the reporting process as well. So I mean, that's probably the driest part of the project management is that kind of monthly update. You know, sit down with the leads, assuming, and obviously you have those discussions during the month as well, but then you have a point at each month where you say, right, so we're going to actually start to put down on pen and paper, you know, what's actually been achieved this month, what's going to be, you know, what we're looking to do next month, where have we got some issues, where have we got, you know, where, and those sort of things, and then that then feeds into the wider sort of more formal communication structures. But I think I personally I'm looking forward to getting back into the office and then say having those more casual conversations, and you know, and also it helps to build up relationships. I think, like I started my job whilst in lockdown in this particular area, and although, you know, it's been great, you know, really strong team, I think, you know, having those conversations sort of in the you know, whilst making a cup of tea in the staff kitchen, you know, you get to know people, and you get to, you know, you can have those sort of offline discussions, you know, like how was your day and all that sort of thing. Whereas I think with the virtual world, it's can be a lot more transactional. You know, it's a bit, you know, it's like, right, we've got an hour, you know, we've got to
must do work.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and that's the same here, you know, with education as well. And I was chatting to Dean, an old friend of mine, in another episode. He's a graphic designer, and he was saying exactly what you're saying, that just to be able to, you know, he was saying there used to be 3 or 4 of them on their little desks, and they could just shout at each other and say, have you got this, send me that file, rather than, are they available? Do I need to call them? Do I need to Zoom them? Do I need to email them? Is their internet working? Are they at their computer? All these things that in 30 seconds can be just solved in an office. Yeah. You know, that's what you're talking about.
As I say, and for me as well, it's also because when you kind of in an open office environment, and some of the students, once you start to move into employment areas, you can kind of listen to sort of what other colleagues are saying, and then you say, well, actually, we're doing this, or you know, you can start to listen to what's happening around you, what other colleagues are, you know, what any of their issues that they might be facing in their workplace. You know, it's like, well, actually, if we do this, or come in with this meeting because we're going to go and talk about this, and it might help you. You know, those sorts of conversations that you know, that are kind of, you don't even realise how important they are until you're not having them. And I think that's really difficult at the moment. I think I feel as though that's where I'm missing out on, is just that general other office conversations that happen.
That social interaction, you know, the conversations that we have, you know, you can link it all to mental health and all those things as well. But we are social creatures at the end of the day. The majority of us do need to be around other people and have discussions about things other than work. And we have missed that a little bit. I wanted to ask something personal for me before I get back onto our questions, and that's about cycling, as I like to ride a bike every now and again, and commute to work on it sometimes, now that the weather's getting a bit nicer, and get my fitness levels back up to where they were. But there's been a lot going on with cycling in Birmingham, the A38, the A34 being just brilliant examples of what can be done, and with the right investment in the right places. And it's great to see. I mean, I haven't used the A34, but I use the A38 one quite a bit. To see that busy is just fantastic. So what else is happening with cycling in Birmingham and the West Midlands, maybe towards the games? Am I right in thinking there's a bike hire scheme coming in soon? I don't know if I read that right. So is there anything else that we can kind of think about with regards to cycling, and is it a focus of the games?
Yeah, there is certainly a focus on it. So we have an active travel lead that is working with the local authorities, and obviously with the organising committee, with the view that we can have, not necessarily for all venues, excuse me, but where we, you know, where there is a good propensity to cycle, there will be routes, and then there will be dedicated provision at the venues to to obviously be able to park your the bicycles, and encourage
Great.
active travel and walking as well, and looking at where we can really enhance that offering. So Edgbaston and the university are great examples where there is existing
Yeah.
infrastructure which we can really use and promote. I suppose the one thing with the games is that it's not necessarily going to build brand new infrastructure for every venue. So it is looking at those and being pragmatic of where can we really push active travel, and then in other areas where we need to look at the travel demand management approach, and actually there might not necessarily be dedicated segregated provision for cycling, but there is still lots of back street routes that can be used. So it's about how do we promote those quieter routes to venues, and making sure that there is that offering there. But I say where there is dedicated provision and off-road provision, then yes, there will certainly be a big push, and we would really want to see as many people being active and travelling to the venues where we can. And obviously all the cycle hire as well is obviously provides opportunities to people that can cycle to a train station, and it is that part of linking those different modes of transport. So it might be that actually even just cycling to your train station and then jumping on the train to then complete the journey, it's those sorts of things that we will be promoting as well. If we can't promote sort of every venue has a dedicated cycle route to it, how can we encourage active travel to then get to public transport to then get to the venue? That's kind of some of the approach. What I would say is at the moment we're still in the early stages of what the actual routes and the networks will be for those venues, but it is certainly a focus that we are wanting to progress, and it does bolt into the whole kind of sustainable games and how we can get people to be active and to be kind of doing that modal shift, making sure that people know that there are choices other than jumping in the car to get to the venue. That there is a
choices is such a key word that you've used there. It's such a massive word, but I'm trying to bring out in my lessons, and you and your team are obviously trying to bring that out, and we are trying to shift, like you said, behavioral patterns. I've always done it this way, therefore I will always do it this way, and we can't kind of roll with that anymore, can we? We've got to change things. What about, are you starting to feel the pressure yet? You said we're 16 months out, and you've been working on it for a while now, I guess about a year or so. Are you and your team starting to feel the pressure yet? Are you, are there deadlines that you're thinking, oh my word, this is happening now? What's that kind of feel like for you and your team?
Personally, I think last year there was a lot of kind of we're just getting all the different components together. This is what we're going to need to do. And of course, in 2020, it was like, well, the games are in 2022, so it's sort of, we've still got a bit of breathing space. It's sort of like, Whereas now, you've hit the nail on the head. The pressure is starting to build now. It's like, actually, I think we recently just passed the 500 days mark, and when you start looking, it's like, oh yeah, there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot to do, and I think now it's this year is really the year that we've got to get everything aligned and planned, and kind of making sure that everybody knows what they're doing, ready for next year, because we need to start sort of this time next year we're starting to be testing things, so we need to make sure that we've got all the operators on board, that all of the all the stakeholders are aware of what's happening and when, and obviously we've got to do all of the comms and engagement with all of the residents and that are around the venues. So there is a lot to do, and we've still we're still at that point where we've still got a bit of breathing space to be able to change things. Of course, the biggest thing at the moment that is could swing things is obviously COVID, and how could that influence what happens during the games. So we're still still planning for full games, full stadiums and all of that, but that's perhaps our biggest, or one of our biggest risks at the moment. And depending on how that plays out, I guess the autumn would be a time when we sort of see what impact that has. But that, of course, that could influence our planning. But at the moment, we're kind of we're feeling the pressure, but we're still we know what we've got to do, we know when we've got to do it, and we've got time to do it, and so I think now we just got to knuckle down and get
That's it,
stuff
yeah.
done.
Exactly, yeah. Your team's in place, you're all skilled, qualified, experienced. Now you just, it's again, we take it for granted. Just do it, make it all work, will you please, Will? Make sure make sure I can take my daughter to gymnastics, will you please? We'd appreciate that. But yeah, and in terms of taking it for granted, now I'm going to ask you a question here that students ask me, and it riles me up. I'm just gonna, if they're listening, fine, I'm being honest with you, but they say to me, what's the point? Okay, what's the point in the games? And I rattle off my usual spiel, by bringing in the legacy, the economy, the global reach, the television, the tourists afterwards, and things like that. But to somebody who's actually working in the games, and your team, and you're seeing all these hundreds and potentially thousands of people working on getting this event, but it's only a couple of weeks, as the students keep reminding me. It's only a couple of weeks. What is the point in bringing it to Birmingham, if you don't mind me asking such a big question like that?
Well, okay, I mean, I'll just have to answer it from my own sort of personal perspective.
Please do, yeah.
For me, it's a catalyst. I see it as, for me, it's really helped to start getting things really moving. So Perry Bar is a great example. Love it or loathe it, the flyover coming down, all of that sort of work, that regeneration in that area, I just think is immense. And it's been something that has been kind of thought about and considered for quite a few years internally. How can we really invest in those areas? And I just think that to me, the Commonwealth Games is a massive catalyst to really get infrastructure up and running, and to be able, new investment. And I think also in COVID times, for me, it's something to look forward to, for the city and the region to look forward to. Pray to God that in this time next year we've got the pandemic behind us, and what a way to celebrate and to bring everybody together, and to really just show what this region can do, and how we can put on a good event, and just say to the world, we are, we're open, we're ready, and we're ready to to take on the world, sort of thing. And I just think it's a real good vibe. It's a real good confidence builder. Birmingham always seems to put itself down. It's always a bit of Brummie bashing. And actually, this is an opportunity to say, no, we are brilliant. We can really do this. We can put on a fabulous event. We've got the infrastructure behind us, and we've got the people working on it, and we've got the spectators to bring the event alive. And I say it is that. It's that catalyst as well to really be able to bring forward a great region. And it is, there is a lot of money being spent on it, there is, but that's when we've got new facilities. So Samwell, with the aquatic centre, we'll have a brand new fantastic facility, which will be a great lots of, and then with the stadium as well, it will be top quality facilities there. It is bringing in, as you said in your introduction as well, the actual revenue that it will bring to the city. All the hotels being full, the restaurants hopefully being full, all of that sort of buzz about the city. There will be lots of spin-offs for businesses and for residents, and there is employment opportunities as part of the games, but also as a legacy side for employment. It's 2 weeks, but if you can volunteer, or if you're able to get paid employment, that gives you a great sort of springboard into other employment opportunities following the games. Say you've volunteered, you've been part of it, that can then be a transferable skill to be able to, and then that's a legacy in itself. Gives you, so I think there's lots of different components that I think makes it a brilliant opportunity for the city and for the region.
And you said catalyst there, which is a word I haven't heard mentioned before when I've asked people about this, but I think, again, you've really touched on it there. I know Sandwell quite well. I know where the aquatic centre is going. I worked in that area for a few years. And to think that will be an aquatic centre, but it's going to host international competition that will be seen around the world in Sandwell, where I used to work, and still don't live far from there. I drive past that kind of area all the time. That's going to be on the television in Australia. What? And how fantastic is that? It's absolutely mind-blowing. And I love that Birmingham is going to be seen globally like that. and hopefully with full houses, thanks to teams like yourself and getting through COVID, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a keyword there. You said volunteer, and you said yourself you'd volunteered. And again, the point of these episodes as well is to try and show students different people's opinions. So I spoke to the director of an animal sanctuary the other day, and I said, "What advice would you give to students?" And he said, "Volunteer." And everybody keeps going on about it. And am I right? It's something like 10,000 volunteers needed. Is that right? At the game,
it's something like that. I apologize, I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, but yes,
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
It's something like it's a phenomenal amount, and there's
yeah,
so much to do as well in different
yeah,
areas. So it's just something that I think is
yeah.
definitely worth progressing, and it helped me to get going in my career as well.
Yeah, yeah. What are the students going to get if they do volunteer? What are they going to get? Because they say to me, "Do you get paid?" And I say, "No, that's the whole point of volunteering." And then you see a few faces drop, and a few faces go, "Well, it still sounds all right." So for those people who actually do it, what are they going to get out of it? Being as though you've done it yourself, what do you get out of volunteering?
Well, for me, there's two things actually.
Right.
Obviously, it is it's the ability to just follow and listen and understand what's going on. So it's a knowledge
Yeah.
kind of building thing, but also it displays that you are actually prepared to do something. To actually go forward and kind of show willing in what you want to do, rather than saying something, I want to do this. You've actually can prove, well, I've actually volunteered and I've actually used my own time to actually commit to this. And also then, you might get a good reference from the person that you volunteered, with, and then that opens up doors then, because then you've got something on your CV. If you haven't got any work experience as such, in an office environment, if that's the way, or I don't know, wherever it might be that you seek this volunteering from, that is then your kind of unique selling point to when you go into interviews, where you say, I've done this, and that speaks volumes, and that's what opens doors to say you've actually done something to try to make a difference in how you're going to progress your career. And it is, not many people have things land in their lap and things happen for them. You have to kind of go out and make them happen. And little things, just volunteering, that can really just be, that can prove that you are wanting to do it, and then that opens doors.
And it's a competitive world out there, isn't it, for the job market, for students. I've said many times, but I don't envy them. I've been there and done it, and I've had I think I'm at 21 jobs in total in my life, and I've had this one for about 12. So that just shows you how fluid my employment was during that time. But the experience you get from that and the things you can learn are just priceless. And we're chatting to the director of the animal sanctuary. Even if you find out you don't want to do it, even if you find out, office work is not for me, I did 2 weeks and I never want to step foot in another one. Great, tick it off your list. Move on to something else. Exactly. Work outdoors.
Definitely, that's it. Yeah, that is so important. I mean, I was lucky because I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But exactly, that volunteering opens up that that knowledge of it might help you focus on what you do want, and certainly explore what you don't want.
Yeah. So let's do one more transport question. Then I want to ask for some kind of advice from you for students. What do you see happening in Birmingham and West Midlands in the next 10 years or so? Then the games will finish next August 2022. And then what for Birmingham? Because we've spoke about things like the petrol car ban, the diesel car ban, clean air zones, and the way things are changing in Birmingham, and improved metro routes, expansions and things. How do you see the next 5 to 10 years in Birmingham going transport-wise?
Oh wow! I think for me, I think HS2 will be quite a game changer for Birmingham and the region, in the sense of physical presence of infrastructure. I think there's the scale of HS2's arrival in the region, and it'll be interesting to see what catalyst that is for growth in the city. Obviously, there's going to be a big change in how kind of office-based staff. Like Birmingham having a significant office kind of presence in the city centre, how that will influence travel. If there is a blend of sort of people working more from home, I think that will influence how travel and what the travel patterns are within the city. I think mode-wise, I think there is still this, as you said, the clean air zone. I think you'll still see a kind of a hesitancy initially of people going back onto public transport, but I think in the longer term, particularly things like Sprint, and there's more metro routes, and there is a bit more of a, and I think generally people are saying that they don't need to drive as much, in the sense of if they go into core areas. So you'll start to see, I do think you'll see a tailing off of traffic levels, but I think the choices will be vastly increased. And I think there will be, it's not going to be anti-car, but I think it will be that whole pro-choice of how are you going to travel, and people will be expecting there to be a good public transport offering. And I think that over the next 5 to 10 years we'll see that really start to take shape, particularly with the metro extension. I think that brings visibility, places like Digbeth, and you'll see that there will be more growth. So it'll be interesting how the town centres change, with retail and all of those. So there's quite a mix of possibilities of change. But I think what we'll see is quite a dynamic city centre with lots of options for public transport and active travel. I think cycling and walking will become I'd like to see it become a bigger modal share of people. It becomes more natural. You're not just seeing lycra-clad people, cyclists going around. You're actually just seeing people in their daily, sort of, in their office clothes or whatever it is, going to, whether it's the cinema or going to meet their friends, turning up on their
short
bike.
trips,
It's doing the short trips, exactly that. And I think you'll see a change in the city centre, where you might see more people living in the city centre, and those local trips being done on cycling and walking. You'll see less dominance, I think, of the motor vehicle in Birmingham city centre. I think across the wider city area, so you'll see more public transport priority. And again, it's not about, I say, banning the car, or I think the car will become cleaner. But obviously with electric vehicles, but I think you'll see it used differently as well. I mean, particularly say if you see things like autonomous vehicles, you call the car to come and collect you. I suppose there is that dichotomy then of, actually, are there more trips placed on the network if I've got an electric car or autonomous car on my drive and I'm at work? Do you see people actually thinking, oh well, now I'm at work, the car will drop me off, it goes back home, parks on the drive, and then comes back into town and picks me up? And could there actually be this, could you actually see a few extra vehicles on the road? But I think actually people will use their vehicles very differently. I think people can be more environmentally aware and want to do their bit. So I think as long as the region has got this public transport and choice offering for how they travel, you will see less people in their vehicles, and you'll see people being more active and wanting to also shop a bit more locally as well. So those need for those longer journeys will be less.
It certainly feels like a shift and a change. I don't know if that will be kind of a generational thing, or where people live takes certain types. I mean, I know where I grew up, over by Longbridge, Lickey Hills kind of area, catching the train was no big deal to me. I used to do it to college and university and things, but whereas I teach students in my class who have never touched a train in their life, because they've never needed to. But we chatted with another one of your colleagues a few weeks back, and the development of new train lines over Moseley, Kings Heath. So, as things change and we become used to it, and the environmental impact, which cannot be ignored, and let's hope that we do start to see that change. And it's really exciting to see, as somebody who's lived here and been down these same roads and streets, my whole life. It's really quite exciting to see, and your passions come through as well, hasn't it? You can kind of feel your excitement and kind of love for what you do, which is great.
But I think what you say, I think there's still a long journey to actually. But I think we are on that journey now. People sort of wanting to, they say, well, where I don't want to drive all the time. Where are my options? And this is what the groundswell of kind of appetite for that change, I feel is now brewing.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question in a moment. You've mentioned things like volunteering. You talked about the wide variety of careers in the transport industry, which again is something that we need to raise awareness of for sure, because there's such a varied team that you work with. But I wanted to take you back a bit, and if you could give yourself, this is my last question, by the way, and I haven't prepped you for it, so apologies, I think. Let's find out. So, if you could go back to when you were 17 or 18 years old and give yourself some advice, or you wish somebody had given you some advice that you'd really stuck by and listened to, what do you think that advice would be?
Oh, I think that advice would very much be follow your dream, in the sense of go for your dream to start with, and don't take no for an answer. I think for me,
Yes.
I was kind of, I think in hindsight, if somebody stopped me doing something, I would just then go and do something else. Whereas actually, I think there was some other areas where I would have gone, no, actually, I can do this, and I would have proceeded in trying to take that path. So yeah, I would follow your heart a bit, but don't take no for an answer, and yeah, really go for it. Don't put any barriers in the way. Just keep going. If you've got an idea of what you want to do, then just keep going at it until until you get there, basically. And whatever that might be.
Yeah.
I've got a nephew now who's playing football in America, because he would not take no for an answer. Not saying that football is the way forward, but I'm just saying that he's followed his dream, and he's absolutely having he's learning out there, but he's also playing college football out there. And I just think, perhaps if I'd done that, I could have perhaps been even done even more than what I've done so far. But saying that, I've really enjoyed what I've done. So
Yeah. Wow, fantastic! Thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate it, and I know our listeners and viewers will as well. And thank you so much for taking the time. Again, like you volunteered to do this, and me and my listeners and watchers and things really appreciate it, because you're giving such an insight into what's happening, and is coming next as Birmingham approaches this really, really exciting time, doesn't it? Commonwealth Games and all the changes going on, and Birmingham and the West Midlands is going to look a lot different for the better. So thank you to you and your team as well for making it all happen. Hopefully we won't take it for granted so much. So stay on the line. We'll have a quick chat at the end of this. But for now, I'll just say thanks for talking business. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you again sometime.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. Thanks for the
All
opportunity.
right, thank you. Will and I had a little discussion at the end of this recording, and we both said that we could talk about transport for hours and hours on end, so I think we did pretty well there to keep it to 45-50 minutes, and I hope that you found the insight that Will had really useful to you. Whether you're a student of business studies, or if you are interested in geography, or wherever you are, you'll be using some kind of transport method, so this applies to wherever you may be listening or watching this. So thank you very much to Will, and thank you very much to all of you for listening, watching and engaging with this podcast and this video here. So if you'd like more Talking Business with Danny Pardo, just have a look for Mr. Pardo's Business or Pardo's Business on all your social media channels, and I'll see you on there. And we'll see you again for another episode of Talking Business with Danny Pardo real soon. Thanks very much. Cheerio.